And there's your cue.
All right, you guys, we're live with episode 19 with the bearded one, Brian Rodman. But wait, we've got an intro. As soon as I find it, there you go.
Raging.
It ain't easy being wizzy.
You should not make fun of asthmatics, Meredith. That is not cool.
No, by all means, make fun of asthmatics. It is fantastic. I even have my fun mug.
My
Right
lungs
there.
are trying to kill me.
Yeah, it's great.
I love the art on the nebulizer. Brian Rodman, first, before we get into your campaign, we love to talk about the creative journey, but we want to talk about you, what you're doing. The bearded one has
Indeed,
joined
yeah.
us today on RAGIN. Brian, you've got a lot of stuff going on, man.
Yeah.
I don't know how you're juggling it all because I am trying to juggle it all, and I decided, I'm going to take a nap today. So, what
You know,
are
it's
you
funny.
doing? Yeah.
I was gonna say last night I did the same thing. I was like, I should work on all the things that I'm doing, and instead I'm just gonna play video games for the first time in a year. So I was like, whatever, I'm doing this.
Oh, because you have art, you've got an active campaign, you've got a podcast going, you've got life stuff going on. So yeah, just video games.
Yeah, why not?
Makes sense.
You know? However, it was the first time in a very long time. It was funny. After dinner, I was like, I'm gonna go work. And that didn't happen because I came in and I saw that my game was still up on my laptop, and I was like, no, I'm just doing that. So,
Sometimes you need that brain break, right?
yeah, and I've been very productive today. So there we go.
Yeah, awesome. So, I mean, we kind of gave a little taste of what you do, but I want to talk about young Brian, the youth who decided
the
one
beard.
day
Before the beard.
Before the
I
beard. before the beard, what was that creative journey like? I mean, why comic books? Why the podcast? Why art? At what point did you go, yeah, that's the thing I want to do?
Mhm. Well, it's actually it does kind of all tie back to asthma. So I've had asthma, chronic asthma, my whole life. And when I was diagnosed when I was 2. And fun fact, I was in the top 5% of the worst cases of childhood asthma in my city.
Wow.
So yeah. So with that, a lot of time just kind of sick inside, not able to really go outside very much. And what my parents did to kind of distract me from that not so great time was comics, cartoons, sat me in front of a TV with hooked up to my machine, and I would draw in a sketch pad, pencil. I would draw what I saw like in cartoons, what I saw in the comics, and make up my own stories. And really that time really just kind of developed my imagination, and I fell in love with the comic book medium. And of course animation as well. And it really kind of just sparked that drive in me from a very early age. So, fast forward, I don't know, 10 years or something, and, graduating high school and I was actually at that time deciding to go into vocational ministry, be a youth pastor or a counselor or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And and the whole time that I was at seminary, you can even see like in some of my old notes, like in the margins and stuff, like I'm learning, theology and all this stuff. And I had, my previous series the ongoing series I have going on called Memoirs of an Angel, that was in the back of my mind. And so I was just kind of really scribbling down notes and and through that, I really decided, I was like, after, I thought at the time, maybe while I was doing vocational ministry, I would also be a comic book creator. I didn't really know what that looked like. And then my life took me a different direction. And, I met my wife, and
there goes seminary.
well, no, seminary was already out by that time. And I met my wife, and we we got married, and one day I just kept talking to her about memoirs of America, talking to her about that and making comics. And finally one day, she was like, okay, we're either gonna do this, or you're gonna shut up about it. And that was really like, the final nail that was driven. And I was like, okay, let's do it, because I, up to that point, was not a very like business minded person. Didn't I wanted to do comics. I had no idea how, and I didn't even know how to figure out how to do it. So I was just like, this would be great one day to do, and I like had sketches and notes and all this stuff. I had no direction on how to actually get that started. And an accountant and an awesome businesswoman, and she kind of took those ideas and these dreams that I had been, thinking of my whole life, and we actually did something with it. So now I've learned so much from her as far as that's concerned, and we've now, this is our 5th very successful Kickstarter, and we're having a blast doing this stuff. So yeah, that's kind of the quick summary. So it started off with sickly Brian, not able to do anything, so started jumping into comic books, and throughout the years that just never really left me. And then finally, I met a wonderful woman who whipped me into shape and made me do it. So yeah, so that's how we're here.
It's kind of like to kind of be a little crude, but it was almost from the sounds of it, a shut or get off the pot kind of moment.
Yeah.
When it comes to the creative process, and I've talked to movie directors and writers, comic book creators, musicians, and things like that, and there was that moment where they were like, well, is this a hobby?
Right.
Or is this going to be something I want to do and try and make something of as a career, and support my family doing it? And that's really kind of a scary jump. Was it scary for you?
It was kind of scary. I mean, it is funny. Like, we talk about all the things that I'm juggling. I also have a day job because I have to have health insurance. And my day job has great health insurance. And they're super supportive with this business as well. Like they come to shows, they buy books, they do, they give me all the time off I need, and they're great. But it was still a scary jump because there was so much more. I mean, especially knowing essentially I'm working 2 full-time jobs, Monday through Friday during the day. I do, work in a tech shop for a security equipment company, programming cameras and things like that. And then by night, I'm, a comic book creator and podcaster, and do that, at nights on the weekends. So there's still a ton of, financially, it wasn't really a super scary jump. But, as far as my social life was concerned, and it was an adjustment. There are people that I don't see very much anymore. There are things I can't just go do if I feel like it. Like, I have responsibilities now. People are paying for what I'm doing, and that is serious. And so I need to take that seriously and put the work in. So yeah, that part was a little like, okay, this is a huge commitment. And am I really going to do this? And if I am, I have to be 100%. I can't just flake out, after I draw 5 pages. Like, this has got to be an actual commitment. And so that was a little scary, but I was so passionate about it, the fear washed away pretty quickly.
Yeah. I want to talk about, if you don't mind, the kid who was kind of hooked to the machines with asthma and not being able to breathe and things like that. Coping mechanisms. You said things like, you would draw and sit in front of the TV and stuff like that. What were some of the for those who don't understand asthma, because I do have friends in asthma. So at the very beginning, when I'm like, it's like it's for
Right.
the nebulizer, you guys.
Yeah,
But I mean, it's true. I've had friends who just all of a sudden they turned very pale, kind of bluish, and they couldn't breathe. And it's just like,
yeah.
what can I do?
Yeah.
What can people do, and what do you do to kind of get through that, especially when you were young?
Yeah. It was actually I've been at the same lung specialist since I was 2 as well. So I've had the same doctors. They're fantastic. When I was a little kid, the one of the alongside the actual like medication side of it, they also really focused on the psychological side of it as
Mhm.
well. So it was okay when you have an asthma attack, instead of panicking because that's just going to make everything worse, think about a happy place. Think about things that are going to like calm you down so you can focus and, breathe and focus. And if you're alone, you can put your nebulizer together, nebulizer machine together, well and quickly. And so that was, I mean, as far as during an attack, that's been the most helpful thing from a very young age. That was what my doctors had me do, and really encouraged, just essentially the don't panic was
Mhm.
was huge. And because it really, I mean, during an asthma attack, and that's the thing, like a lot of people think, of asthma like, oh well, you have an attack and then you take your inhaler and you're fine. And
Mhm.
sometimes that's the case. Other times, you can it could just be sicular. So, I can have an asthma attack, and depending on the severity of it, it can knock me out for a week or two. I mean, I actually just had that happen to me a couple weeks ago. Ironically, it happened when I launched the nebulizer, which was
That
dumb.
wasn't stress at all.
No, not at all.
No.
Actually, it wasn't stress. It was outside. This is the time of the year where I have to stay inside, and I broke that rule the night that we launched. I was like, I'm going to treat myself because my wife got me a really cool projector outside and a screen and everything. So I watched Castlevania season 4. It's so good. I watched Castlevania season 4 outside, and I paid the price, but it was worth it to see that up on the big screen. But anyway, yeah, that kind of, because of all the wonderful pollen and grossness that's outside at this time of year, it just kind of harassed my lungs for a good long while. And I'm on the heavy duty meds. Like I take a shot every 2 months and all this crazy stuff. So I got my shot last week. So now I'm good for another 2 months. So we're good. But
Yeah,
but
it's great because like as adults, it's like, yeah, it's okay. I can handle it.
no. Yeah. So as a kid, that's just, missed a lot of school. But my personality, I was able to really, I'm still really social. I'm a social guy, so I was able to overcome that pretty easily. I wasn't, depressed sitting at home alone all the time, but yeah, during those times it sucked. I mean, I can tell you, the hardest part was Halloween, because when I was a kid, fall was the worst time of year, and summer was actually my best time of the
Oh.
year. Now as an adult, it's flipped, which is
Mhm.
weird. But it's just weird how bodies change. But when I was a kid, I would half the time I was sick on Halloween, so all my friends would go out trick or treating, and I was like sitting at the door, like, although I got a ton of candy, so there was that. My parents
See,
were
if
like,
only you had
"Here."
the nebulizer suit walking around,
Right.
right?
Yeah, exactly. Oh man, which we'll get into that a little bit later. There's a funny story to how this comic actually became a thing.
Nice. Now, so now you mentioned Memoirs of an Angel.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure, we can talk about that.
Yeah.
That's gonna be, so the nebulizer. What I've started doing is Memoirs of an Angel is probably going to cap out about 50 issues. It's that's the thing I've been working on for, oh gosh, so many years. Just kind of formulating the story, and I mean, a lot of the I'm a Christian, and when I graduated high school, I went to college. I went to community college just for a couple of years to figure out kind of what I wanted to do with my life. And there I was faced with like someone who wasn't a Christian who knew exactly why they weren't and why Christianity wasn't true. I was like, oh crap, I had nothing to say in return.
Wow.
And so, yeah, because like I just never really put a whole lot of thought into it. I was just raised that way. And so I was like, oh, this is what I believe and this is true. And then when someone was like, actually, it's not true and this is why, and you don't really know how to respond to that, yeah, there's a bit of it should, put you into like a questioning mode. Like, oh, okay, so what do I believe and why do I believe it and what is truth and all that stuff. So I went on that journey for a few years and wasn't really trying to prove Christianity to myself. It was more so just, what is this real and what is real about it, and so on and so forth. And so a lot of that research then led me into seminary and just learning more and more about why I believe what I believe and what it what was like man-made tradition versus what was actually in the Bible and in the context of the ancient writers and all that stuff. And through that process, Memoirs of an Angel became a thing. My love for comics was really kind of it's funny, like as a storyteller, that was the only real way I knew to like process what I was ingesting, and so it came out as a story. And I've always been fascinated with horror and supernatural stuff, and so it came out as a horror fantasy. It's essentially, I tell people, it's essentially Lord of the Rings meets The Exorcist. So in like that crazy climax of The Exorcist, if you pull back the curtain of the physical realm, that's what Memoirs of an Angel is.
Nice.
And so a lot of the things that I learned and studied and still learn and study, I haven't stopped questioning. As I work through my faith, it comes out in Memoirs of an Angel. So it's kind of like a form of worship, a form of like journaling about my faith just through comic books.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like journaling.
Yeah, it
in
just
a way.
comes out that way. Yeah, and really like, and honestly, for me, like I hate Christian entertainment. It sucks. It's usually,
It generally does.
Yeah. I mean, there's a few exceptions, but they're
Yeah.
very rare. And I did not want to be like, this is the Christian comic. It's not. It's a horror fantasy comic that has biblical themes, and that's what I tell people, because it's not family friendly. It's actually for mature readers.
Dark.
There's a lot of gore. There's a lot of because I say this all the time. Like, if someone made a movie of the Bible, it would be NC-17. Like, there's some crazy stuff in the Bible. And so, yeah, like how it came from that to, this cheesy cookie cutter, family friendly, everything wraps up happy at the beginning, I have no idea, because that is not what Christianity is. but for some reason, that's what it is depicted as in the Christian genre on TV. And most Christian entertainment sounds like a sermon rather than a story. And I never wanted to do that. And I always wanted to, let the story speak for itself, let the characters grow naturally. And just like any story, you have themes that pop up throughout and statements that you make, but they're not preachy. It's told through just storytelling. And so that's what Memoirs of an Angel became, and that's what it is. And we just put out our 7th issue earlier this year, and I'm actually currently writing issues 8 and 9, wrapping up the 2nd volume of the series, and it's a blast. It's funny, the first couple issues of Memoirs, I had no idea how to make comics. So the first 3 issues were all black and white at first, and then I went back and redid them all digitally and threw some color on there, and now I actually know how to make comics. And still learning, but I've got a pretty good hang of it. And now they're really coming together, and I'm starting to see on paper what I saw in my head 10 years ago.
Nice. So now on Thursday we were sitting with Michael Watson, and he has the Hot Shot collection right now, and his goal was, or is, 100 issues. Now, you just said 50 issues. That's like half, but it's still a big number.
Really big.
Yeah.
A really big number for a run. Does it ever feel too big for you?
Well, it was more than 50. There was a time where I kind of had, no pun intended, a come to Jesus meeting with myself. It was just like, okay, like, what is the, like, realistically, what am I asking of my readers, and what am I asking of myself, in creating this thing? Because, you know, which is why starting this year we've started putting out more issues and doing more Kickstarters each year, because otherwise, like, the series, I was gonna die where the series is gonna be done. And so, and honestly, you know, people traditionally, they don't, a lot of people don't really like stories that just seem to go on and on and on and on and on, and there's not a whole, I mean, some people like that, but it's just, I wanted, you know, to trim the fat. And so it was probably originally, it could have easily reached 100 issues, but I really just kind of sat down one day and mapped out the whole series. And you know, essentially each, there are 4 books, so and there's 3 volumes per book. So right now I'm on my 2nd volume of book 1, and each, you know, that's essentially how I'm pacing it. Each volume is 4 to 6 issues long. So,
Nice.
you know, it's standard length. Each issue standard length, you know, 24 to 30 pages.
Mhm.
And I've mapped out enough of the story where I know how it ends. I know, you know, pivotal, you know, pillars in the story that cannot be moved, that this is exactly what I want. And I've left some room to have some fun along the way. But yeah, no, it really, it would have lasted a lot longer. So, so we're trying to release, you know, about 3 or 4, well, trying to do about 3 or 4 Kickstarters a year. Um, and I have other projects that I want to work on. I have other things I want to do, and the Nebulizer was one of them. And so, kind of the pattern that I've found is 3 to 4 Kickstarters a year. One will be a mini series that I'm working on, and the rest of it will be Memoirs of an Angel. And
Hmm.
that's essentially how I'll be moving forward for now.
Uh, that's great, because I think it's so important for people to set goals, even if they seem really huge.
Mm.
And I was even telling Nita not too long ago, it's like, we have a huge, huge goal with what we want to do, but pick a lane. Let's pick
Yeah,
a lane. Let's do really well with it
yeah.
and see where it goes. And then from there, like, once you get comfortable, you get acclimated to it. You get acclimated to the crazy, right?
And
And
then
then
you can do other things
then
because
you
you're
can do
used to
other
it. Yeah,
things.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Because honestly, like, you know, I'm a big picture guy, and that's what Robin is very, you know, she's an accountant. She's very much in the details,
Mhm.
and I needed that perspective in my life to really, and I still do all the time, because I have all these big picture dreams of where I want, you know, all the stories that I have in my head to go. But if you try to tackle all of them at once, it's all going to fall apart.
Yes.
So you pick one thing, do that, learn to do it well, and then reassess and just move forward like that. And then that'll, you know, it takes a little time, because trust me, I wish it could happen like that. That'd be great, but that's just
Mhm.
not reality.
Now, so let's just say, picking the lane in comics, the learning curve of comics. What was the hardest thing for you? Because
Oh,
you do the art. The art, I would assume, comes fairly easy, right?
now it kind of does. There's still days where, like, cars are in my script and it makes me mad. But but, like, you know, I mean, there are certain things that, you know, are easier to draw than others. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, the art is probably the most time consuming, the most challenging part. I have learned that I am a writer first.
Mhm.
But you know, my art is a very close second. You know, I've always, you know, loved to draw and design characters and things like that. So, yeah, I do. You know, doing everything. Originally, that started out because I was just too poor to pay anybody. But
I feel
but
that.
yeah, but so I was like, I guess I got to learn how to do this, for better or worse. It's gonna suck at first, and it did. It sucked at first. It absolutely did. You know, I think the most challenging thing that I've learned is lettering. But I feel like I've gotten decent at it. You know, I knew what, you know, the first, if you looked at the black and white issues of Memoirs, you'll see that the struggle was real with with the lettering, because I had no clue. And then I just did some research and I learned, and you know, I'm still picking up on, you know, because I love manga. and American comics, and so like my comics, I've learned, especially early on, like if you look at, it doesn't. I had trouble figuring out the left to right thing and how to maneuver that. But more recently, I've researched a little bit, and a lot of comics now, because of the blend with manga, it's now more a top first. So top down instead of left to right. And I was like, thank God. Because half the time, like I'm viewing the lettering process as an artist, and I'm like, this would look better phonetically within the the page, but then you kind of lose that left to right. But thankfully that doesn't really matter as much anymore, so I'm happy about that.
Yeah, thankfully I have Anita who goes, cut it, or your tail looks like shit, Meredith. I'm like, okay.
Oh, editors, that's Robin. Robin's like the visual editor of everything that I do. I'll call her in here and be like, hey, what do you, and of course I'm like, look at this, or
yes, and you need that honest opinion, and they will keep you humble.
Oh, and she's very gracious about it. I really appreciate it. But she'll come in and I can just look at her face and I know that it sucks. I'm just like, all right, what's wrong? And she'll explain it. Yeah, it's like, just tell me, what is it? But yeah, it's funny. Like I've found a very similar in thinking, just thought process of approaching art with Mike Mignola, who has said, it's like, most of the stuff I do sucks and I like a few things, and that's kind of how I feel about it too. I was just like, I feel like most of the things that I do, like, I'm not like, it's not like a self-deprecation kind of thing, but it's just like what I see in my head is not what ends up on the page, as far as as good as I want it to be, but the general idea is there. But most of the time it's either I'm like calling Robin in the other room, like, this is great, and she'll come in and make me humble, and or I'm just like, this sucks, this is terrible, I need to quit drawing, and she'll just be like, go take a shower and you'll be fine. Because that's honestly, the shower
have
is
a Snicker bar.
Yeah, right. The shower is the magical place for me. That's where I write most of all of my major dialogue. So half the time I'm like jumping out of the shower, running to my computer to type some stuff down. But that's where I go when I need to just kind of recharge and I don't know, the creative juices begin to flow. So
now, before we take a real quick bump, you said that a lot of the stuff, or at the very beginning with Memoirs of an Angel, that it kind of sucks at first. Have you ever thought about going back and redoing it?
Well, I did that once. That was when, so when I redid everything and put it in color, I redid quite a bit of it. There were completely different page layouts when I redid it, and that's what and I was pretty pleased. There's a few pages that I'd still like to go back and maybe do a few tweaks to, but at the same time, like it's good as far as industry standards. Like, it's good now. And I don't really want to just keep going back and redoing it, because I like to see the growth too. And a lot of people that I was talking to JD Calder on the other day, he was talking about memoirs and just how as he's seen from issue 1 to now, the progress, and I think that's cool. I think that's cool to see. So I like seeing that with other creators too. So like I said, issue 1 is still good, but issue 7 is a lot better. Just because I've learned as I've gone.
Yeah. Now, because it's a story that kind of carries on, you have the same characters. Do you ever struggle with like the consistency, or you're like, nope, I'm just going with this kind of newer look, more fluid look, maybe, or polished and things like that? Or do you try and kind of keep it, again, I think the struggle, especially with sequential art, is consistency.
Yeah. I know that, from what I've seen, and I'll go back, and I think this is really important, is I'll go back and not only reread the whole series over and over again, just to make sure I'm not missing things, or I'm staying consistent with the story, but also with the art. And the only thing I can see, there's characters are getting subtly more crisp, but they don't there aren't any drastic changes.
Right. You can still kind of recognize them.
Yeah. And yeah, like it's not like a whole new artist took over on issue 7 because I'm so much better than issue 1. It's just, things are just a little bit different, but it transitions slowly as you read, which I think that's going to happen, in a lot of projects, a lot of, as an artist gets better. I mean, I think probably now this guy was already amazing, but Todd McFarlane, when he started Spawn, I mean, you look at issue 1, it looks amazing, but you look at the stuff he's done more recently and it's so much better. So yeah.
All right. Well, we are at the 30-minute mark. Almost bingo. Look at that. So we're going to do a little bump here for a 10% discount on your Gemini mailers for those of you in comic books and you want to get your books delivered safely. Go to Gemini mailers. I'm sorry. I think it's Gemini Comics Supply for a 10% discount on your Gemini mailers. Use coupon code VOLT10, and that is courtesy of Indie Volt. Thank you, Varian Grand and Indie Volt, for sharing that with us on RAGIN. And for those of you who are tuning in, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We are live streaming simulcast to Geek Insider, Comics and More New Jersey, Indie Volt, as well as RAGIN AVC. Hit the button, hit the subscribe button, and while you're there, check out the description because we've got the follow links for BRIAN RODMAN as well. You can follow him on his socials. He's also got a YouTube channel that he's trying to grow. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. Brian, we're back.
All right.
So, yeah, hit the button, you guys. Hit the button.
Do it.
Trying to grow. And I am going to pull up the nebulizer in just a second. But the Dastardly Dingoes podcast. It's not comic books.
No.
What is it? What are you doing?
So, Dastardly Dingoes is a ridiculous, fun podcast about all things nerdy, and it's essentially me and my two friends, Jeremy and Chad, and us interviewing other creators, reviewing movies, and really just talking all things nerdy. And it's a blast. It's fun. We have a lot of fun on the show. We don't try to take ourselves too seriously at all, and that seems to work out for us so far. But yeah, it's been great. We are in our 3rd season now. We're about to start our 4th season here soon. We're actually having a meeting next week to talk about what we're going to do to change up the show a little bit. I think we're about to start doing live shows all the time instead of every now and then, because up till now it's been a pre-recorded show, which has been great, but it's putting a lot. Jeremy is our producer and does all the editing, and that's a lot. That's a lot. He does it full time, and so it's going to give him a little bit of a break and help us. We want to do so. We're going to start, now that the pandemic's over with, we're going to start doing some stuff in the Dingo Cave, some real-time commentary on movies and things like that. And so that stuff will be pre-recorded, and that'll free Jeremy up to edit those things while we can just do the interview shows and stuff live. But yeah, we started doing it. Me and Jeremy and our friend Justin, we did season 1 all audio on podcast, and then when the pandemic hit, we really, Justin, he just decided he'd really want to do it anymore. And so Jeremy and I, we were like, well, do we stop or do we keep going? And Jeremy really wanted to do a YouTube channel. And so we're like, that's cool. That's fine. And so he and I changed into an interview show, because it was just essentially the nerd news and what we thought about it. And that was it. That was season 1. And season 2, we started getting on into indie creators, just chatting them up, and much like this. And through that, we found, Jeremy and I both knew Chad separately. We all 3 live in Louisville, and when Chad was on a few times, we noticed there was pretty good chemistry there. And I give Chad a lot of crap because he's one of the most talented, if not the most talented, indie creator in the business right now. And I just need to keep him humble. That's my job in his life, is to make him feel like crap.
The beard has spoken.
Indeed. And so anyway, we have a lot of fun with that on the show. Most of it is me talking about how much I hate Chad. and it is a lot of fun. A lot if
He
I
just
can
takes the abuse.
yeah, if I can just rope people, oh, he comes right back. It's great. If I can get people who are the guests on the show to help me hate Chad, it's even better. Which has happened a few times, and I love it. It's great. But yeah, it's a ton of fun. It's if you want to, and this past week actually we had my editor for Memoirs of an Angel. He's a demonologist, and but he's not like crazy, and so he walks through that that one was probably the most serious episode we've ever done, just because there were some real questions that come along with that topic where you're like, what? But he did such a great job, kind of answering the skeptical questions and things like that. And it's a great episode. But other than that, most of the time it's lighthearted and fun, and we get stupid. So yeah.
Now, so going into 3 seasons, that takes a bit of commitment too. Did you ever stop and go, how did this happen? Like what?
All the time. All the time. I'm just like, good grief, like half my week is just like all of my week is taken up by something, some kind of creative endeavor that I've decided to say yes to. And then of course on top of that, I'm now on a Rising Tide show as well, the Comic Book Spectrum on Thursday nights, with Brian K. Morris and Clyde Hall and Eric Hawkins, and we just review indie comics and talk indie comics, and it's a lot of fun. Or review comics, not just indie comics.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's everywhere I turn, I'm either working on a comic or talking about them. So yeah, it's a lot of fun though. I love it. I love it so much. I don't ever get tired of it, and I can honestly say that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm starting my own comic journey. I started this past year, and it's like, oh my gosh, I am never, ever, ever going to get off this learning curve. And I'm halfway to dead, I mean, seriously, but realistically, I'm like, why did I start this when I was 49? Because I think if I was 20, I would have failed.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I'm really kind of glad that I'm doing it now as opposed to then, because I have more patience now. I know what my limitations are. And I also, in a way, I kind of know what I want.
Yeah.
Have you found that also in your creative journey? It's like the older you are now, you're kind of more settled. You're yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Had I started this in my I started in my late 20s. I think I was like 28, 29 when I started. But yeah, now especially with all juggling all the different projects and things, I couldn't have done that in my 20s. I wasn't mature enough to do it in my 20s. I wasn't wise enough to do it in my 20s. I'm barely wise enough to do it now, and, to handle it now. And so it's just there comes a place where in your life you gain more and more discernment on what to say yes to and what to say no to, and when you're young you usually don't have that yet. And honestly you approach life different as you get older, and so hey, you know what, Meredith, don't feel bad, because my asthma is just with my asthma the way it is, I'm probably halfway to dead too, so so there we go.
We're one step closer every day.
And now we're another step closer. There we go.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, if there's one guaranteed thing, okay, we don't make it out alive.
Right.
Just saying.
Hey, bring on the sweet release. You know what
right?
I mean? Let's
go. Cheers. Now we're going to bring up the nebulizer while we're talking about that. There we go. You've got 5 days to go. Yep. 98 backers, so close to 100. Let's get him to 100 backers, yes. You guys. I mean, that's a huge goal right there. A chronic asthmatic and his feisty AI controlled nebulizer suit fight through a post-apocalyptic world filled with allergen mutants. Oh my. Can we play your video?
Yeah, go for it. Sweet. Yeah, the video, just really quick, it was made by Jeremy Woodring, who's the main producer and of the Dastardly Dingoes, and he is a fantastic.
And there it is, we see it on the screen, the nebulizer. It ain't easy being wheezy. All right, here we go.
everybody, I am Brian Rodman, and I create comics. You may have seen my previous series, Memoirs of an Angel, or you may have seen me on the Dastardly Dingoes podcast on YouTube. And if you haven't, then you should go to brianrodman.com and check those out, because they're pretty stinking awesome. But today, I'm here to talk to you about a brand new series, a post-apocalyptic action comedy called The Nebulizer. So The Nebulizer is about a chronic asthmatic who's named Connor and his feisty AI nebulizer suit named Albi as they fight through a post-apocalyptic world filled with allergen mutants. Yeah, it's ridiculous. And it knows it's ridiculous, and you're going to love it because it's ridiculous. And the best part about this, honestly, for me, is that this comic is for everybody. All ages will enjoy this. I mean, the worst thing in this comic is monster guts, and let's be honest, what kid doesn't like monster guts, right? You know?
Brad, I don't think all kids like monster guts.
There are kids that don't like monster guts?
Yeah.
What?
I don't know.
This comic is for everybody. So before the blast, because there has to be a blast, it's post-apocalyptic, right? So Connor's doctor created a vial that really stores all of his medication that he can put inside of his suit. And the catch is it only lasts for 3 years, and this vial keeps him alive. So him and Albi are on the hunt for this last remaining vial that hopefully is out there somewhere. It's Bubble Boy meets Mad Max with a dash of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and I Am Legend. So it's a lot of fun. And this project means quite a bit to me personally because I have chronic asthma and I have had that my whole life. So when I was growing up, and even now, when I can't go outside, I can't do things with my friends, I'm in front of a comic book or a TV, watching cartoons or movies, and I'm drawing. Really, it's because of asthma that I became a comic creator to begin with. And I really wanted to create a character that asthmatics, young and old, can identify with and look to and be like, hey, that's really cool. That's a great representation of asthma and asthmatics in the comic book world. So this project in particular provides a lot of really cool ways to jump into the world of the Nebulizer. We'll of course have digital and physical reward tiers for the issue itself. We'll also have an amazing variant cover by Seth the Moose, whose art is featured in stories like Floppy Cop and Tales of Mystery. For the higher tiers, we'll have prints and bookmarks, but we'll also have a really cool tier where you yourself will be able to be drawn as an allergen mutant. Who doesn't want that, right? And we also may or may not have some really cool surprises along the way. So scroll through, see what reward tier fits you best, and jump right into the world of the Nebulizer. Thanks so much for watching.
So much fun. And the artwork is fun.
Yeah. It's funny, the artwork, it's inspired by like the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles toys and like the He-Man toys. So like kind of that short, stocky, model. Yeah, it's just really that, the bright colors and the overly dramatic cartoony look. That's just fun.
So you said that you had a story about the Nebulizer, like how it came to be. I must hear it.
Okay, so I brought up the tech shop that I work in. That's my 9 to 5, and I love the guys that I work with. We're all really good friends, and they're all huge nerds as well. And so they have a game though that they play where whoever makes me laugh so hard that I have an asthma attack, they win the game.
Brian, you do not play games that try to kill you.
That is not cool.
It's not. So we don't play it every day.
They're not your friend.
You don't play it every day.
Friends don't kill friends.
No, they it's not an intentional game, but we say that it is just because it is actually. We all have really bad, dark sense of humor, so it is pretty funny that half the time it's become a game. But anyway, one day one of my coworkers won, and I was taking,
and Brian was in the hospital. No, kidding.
and and I was, on my nebulizer, and we were all talking about at that point, like, we just need to make you a suit. That's just a nebulizer that's just constantly pumping, medicine in you. And that way you don't have to worry about this. And from that, we all laughed, and I drew like a goofy picture of me in a nebulizer suit and passed it around, and they were all like, actually, that's really freaking cool. So then I drew a more serious one and posted it on Facebook, and that's what the nebulizer ended up looking like, and everybody loved it. Everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, when's the story gonna come out?" I was like, "I don't have one." So
you're like, "Oh crap!"
I guess I better create some kind of story. And then throughout, at the beginning of the pandemic, with my asthma, I was really high risk, and my doctor was just like, "Stay at home and don't go anywhere," and I did, and through that, it kind of became writing the nebulizer kind of became therapy for me. So I actually surprisingly came up with a really touching, fun, ridiculous story that really it'll make you laugh, but it's also going to tug at your heartstrings. So it's and it's all about, I mean, the premise is the allergen mutants thing. It's the things that have like tried to kill me my whole life. Now I can kill them back in this comic book. And anybody who has asthma and allergies can it's kind of a release in that way. But with that, it's stupid. Like, it's so ridiculous, it's so much fun, and it knows it's ridiculous. But at the same time, there are moments where it switches from being funny and ridiculous to being sad, heartwarming. I mean, because ultimately it's not just about it's not just about having representation for asthmatics in comics. It's also about family. It's about family that you choose versus family that you're stuck with. And it's about what defines suffering, and kind of how to walk in your trials that you have no choice but to walk in, and how you deal with that and how you approach that in life. And so it deals with these heavy things, but in a humorous, fun way.
I think that's how we learn best, is that if we can relate to it, if we can laugh about it, if we can cry about it, just any kind of emotion that comes from it, and it helps us grow. I think it's pretty amazing, because as storytellers, it's a lot of people don't want to take on the responsibility, but there is a certain amount of responsibility, especially when you have a story like that, to kind of stay true to it and let people have that therapeutic moment because of your experiences.
Yeah. Like right now, I'm in the middle of the issue, or I'm a little past the middle of the issue, drawing just kind of a really, sad part of the story, because we not only are following Connor, who's the guy inside the suit, but we go back and kind of see what childhood was like for him, and a lot of that is some personal feelings that I really didn't address until I wrote this book.
Right.
So yeah, there's some moments in here where you're probably going to either feel, at the very least, feel sorry for this character, but at the most relate to him on some really deep ways and maybe shed some tears. But then we jump right back into stupidity.
And I see like the art styling, even the video a little bit is a throwback to like 80s, maybe early 90s. I see the water cannon in there. I'm just like, oh yeah. It throws back to like fun days. For some reason, I see the nebulizer suit and I think of Stretch Man. I don't know why. Is that weird?
Funny. No, not at all. I think a lot of it has to do. I really wanted to capture the early '90s, just in the color palette, like I said, and even in like the kind of how I draw the characters as well. But I really wanted that feel, even though it's not set in the '90s. It's not a period piece or anything. It's just that when I think back to fun, nostalgic times, this is what pops up. So I really wanted to just throw that in there too. And I think anybody, who grew up or was alive during that time would really enjoy that as well.
Yeah, and we're scrolling through. So anybody who's just listening in, but get my tongue back here. There is a way to catch up with Memoirs of an Angel.
Yeah.
And you've got some swag there. You got the beanie. You are at this point in time 2 backers away from unlocking the Nebulizer beanie, which would be cool.
Yeah.
I love this logo. I mean, just the colors, the pop, and it was just. I remember the first time I looked at it, I was just like, what was it? For whatever reason, it didn't click. And then I had those moments. I'm like, oh, that's brilliant. And I need that, like a pin or something.
Oh yeah, we've got well, we actually just here, I have it right here. We got them in the mail.
Ooh,
There's
hold on a
stickers.
second. Let me get you on the big screen.
Sure.
You got
So
stickers.
Stickers,
Those
those are the labels that are going to go on to the collector's boxes, but I think we're probably going to go ahead and order some anyway, just to stick in to a physical reward tier. But and while we're here, this currently is sold
I was going to ask about that. Yeah.
So this is pretty cool. I do want to show off just the packaging, because Damian Walbrin at O Toys did such a fantastic job making this. This is my favorite part, is the package opens. You don't have to damage the package to take him out. And each toy comes with a nice sticker as well.
Very cool. Now, what was the decision to go with that? Because that is not usually a very cheap endeavor.
No, it's not usually. And Damien and I have been friends for a long time, and he just started. He's worked with a couple other indie creators and done a toy line for them. He's really good at it. Right now, his model is more of the Kenner, the old Kenner Star Wars toys. It's kind of that. It's that model. And he's done that with a few other projects, and he approached me about doing one for the Nebulizer, and then potentially down the road doing Memoirs of an Angel figures as well. And
very cool.
And we talked about more of the practical pricing, what that looked like versus kind of how would we really present it on the Kickstarter campaign. And Damien, if you're an indie creator, Damien's very reasonable and super talented. I mean, each figure is going to be hand painted. The packaging is super professional, and he's a great guy to work with.
I think that is pretty awesome, because there are a lot of people who are looking at the different modeling options. Whether it's action figures, whether it is 3D printing and things like that, and trying to find something that'll hook the audience into something more. It's just that tactile, besides flipping through the comic book and things, and highly collectible. You only had 5 in this.
There were 10 actually.
Yeah, okay.
10 figures, and we sold. 8 people grabbed the figure on day one, and then we kind of sat for a couple weeks with 2 figures left, and then this past week 2 people snatched them up. Ironically, they're both doctors. And, so that's actually another fun thing is I told my doctor about this idea 2 years ago now, and he as a lung specialist is super excited that that there's a character now out there that kids can read and relate to, and it's all about what it's like to have asthma. It's all about that, but it's not like I'm a victim. It's just he owns it, and he goes out and kills the thing that could kill him, and it's a lot of fun. And before that, I mean, when I was a kid, I had there was a video game that we played at the doctor's office called the Bronchiosaurus, and it was essentially a little dinosaur that was like a Mario game, but it was like certain things, like certain allergens you'd run across and it would hurt you, and it's like that's other than this, that's like the only other thing that I remember that was any kind of like asthma focused. And so now people of all ages can enjoy the story and have some fun with it.
That's awesome. And it is so much fun. I just love the approach that you have as a way of kind of having those serious moments, but keeping it fun, keeping it educational without bonking you on the head.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's a testament to, your past.
Oh,
You know?
absolutely. Yeah. Growing up in it, I mean, I know, as a kid, I knew a lot more about um, medical stuff than half of most adults do, and that's just because hey, I had to know that stuff, and now I can use this knowledge to share with people, but in a story similar to Memoirs of an Angel.
Mhm.
It's sharing this world, sharing this part of my life through a story, but this was the big thing with memoirs. Things are very serious, and I also have to stick with world building rules that I didn't create really. There's some creative license I can have within that, but I'm really trying to stick with more of a biblical worldview. Here, I can do whatever I want to do.
Sure.
I can absolutely have fun with it. I can do literally whatever I want to do in this world.
And it's got monster guts.
and it's got monster guts. Who doesn't like monster guts?
I
right?
love monster guts.
So
Ask some of my friends. I used to, the slime that used to get out of the quarter
Yes.
machines and stuff like that. I used to
Yes.
slime the lockers and stuff. Oh, it was bad. It was bad. Monster guts is where it's at, you guys. And so is the
Absolutely.
nebulizer number one. We've got a couple more minutes left with you, Brian. This hour went by really fast. So 5 more days to go. We're trying to get to at least 100. Let's smash through that. Make sure that you share this out with your friends. Share out the campaign. If you are watching on the YouTube channel, we are simulcasting to Geek Insider, Comics and More New Jersey, Indie Vault, as well as RAGIN AVC. Hit the like, subscribe to those. If you check out the show notes, you're going to see his YouTube channel as well for the Dastardly Dingoes. And let's all network and grow together. Brian, where can people find you? I mean, I know that I already posted the links, but for the people who are just listening in, okay, and maybe
Right.
not paying attention, pay attention, you guys, and hit the button.
Yeah. Actually, the easiest place to find me and everything that I do is at BRIANRODMAN.com. It's essentially its own link tree. At the very top of the homepage, there's my Patreon, there's the Kickstarter link, there's all my social media stuff, and we have an online store there as well.
Mhm.
If you want to get caught up on Memoirs of an Angel, if any of that sounded super awesome to you, we have all the books available right now. So yeah, and the Nebulizer, of course, is on Kickstarter for 5 more days, and 2 more backers. I want that beanie.
I do too.
Selfishly, I just want that beanie. Like that's all I want out of this campaign. I made this whole campaign just because I wanted a beanie.
Now with all the social media and stuff, where are you most active? Where can people kind of interact with you the best?
Facebook's the best place to interact with me.
Mhm.
Instagram as well. I'm on Twitter, but I like to stay off Twitter. It's kind of a dumpster fire. So yeah, Facebook and Instagram are the big 2.
That's awesome. Brian, it has been a pleasure. We are at our hour. Let me just put your card up here. All right. For everybody who is tuning in, this is episode 19 of RAGIN with the bearded one, Brian Rodman. He's got Memoirs of an Angel. He's got the Dastardly Dingoes podcast. He's got the Nebulizer number 1. It ain't easy being wheezy. Make sure that you check it out. Head over there, hit the share button. If you cannot pledge, that's okay. Hit the button. It's that easy. On that note, you guys, it has been a pleasure. This is RAGIN. Hey, Nita.
Yo,
Final words.
throw the dudes.
All right. We're out of here.